that we are going to be looking at this evening is the well-being of your children and the use of your tax dollars. And we know that those are two things that people take very seriously. So we want to make sure that we are equipping our community with as much information as possible about the upcoming referendum. Please feel free to use the Q&A button to enter questions. We will seek to try to answer those questions as we go through the presentation tonight. They will be saved, however, if we do not get to them, we will make sure that we email responses out to you as well. All right, and at this time, I'd like to turn things over and have Michelle Brown introduce herself as well.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Michelle Brown. I'm the Director of Business Operations for the district. I've been in Glendale-River Hills since July 1st. I have been working in school finance over 19 years with over 15 years as a school business administrator. These are challenging times here in Glendale-River Hills, but with the right support and expertise, we believe we'll be able to move forward well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation tonight. Again, feel free to put things into the Q&A so that we can make sure we're stopping along the way and answering any pertinent questions that you may have. So part of what we're going to be covering in tonight's presentation is really looking at what happened in our school district that led us up to this point. How are we responding? What are our current needs? And then what does this mean for our school district moving forward? So I'd like to start first by sharing a video with all of you. This video comes from WASBO, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. And it really talks a little bit about school funding, where you can start to see some of the funding gaps that are occurring across the state, which is causing several of our school districts to have to go to a referendum.
Our public schools are the cornerstone of our community. The education and opportunities we provide for students today shape their futures and ours. Schools, like any organization, need money to operate. But in Wisconsin, funding the needs of our schools has been a growing challenge. State policy limits how much school districts can spend. The vast majority of school funding comes from a combination of state dollars and local property taxes. It's called the revenue limit, and it acts as a cap per student that school districts can spend each year. Even if school costs go above this level, schools can't spend any more than this limit. From 1994 to 2009, these revenue caps were adjusted for inflation, which meant they helped schools keep up with ongoing needs. But since 2010, the resources districts need to survive have fallen farther and farther behind the basic costs to operate our schools. By the end of 2025, the revenue limit will have fallen more than $3,300 per student behind inflation. With a district of 1,000 students, that's a decrease of more than $3 million. What's more, each district has a different revenue cap, and these caps are not tied to the needs of the students or the costs to the schools that serve them. Our job as a school district is to make sure all of our students have access to the exceptional educational opportunities we provide, no matter what their needs when they walk through our doors. But state funding falls short of what it costs to meet the specific needs of many of our students. When that happens, we have to use money from our general fund to cover the difference, which means taking dollars from other important needs. The largest portion of our budget goes towards staffing. Our people are the heart of our schools. Without enough educators who instruct, support, and inspire learning, schools can't provide the lessons, programs, and opportunities our students deserve. Other important budget items include curriculum, technology, transportation, operations, and maintenance. School districts work hard to balance their budgets, yet resources for schools have been shrinking year after year since 2010. With costs growing so much faster than funding, districts are always looking for ways to trim costs and work smarter, like deferring needed school maintenance, cutting programs, reducing staff, and many other strategies. But schools can only cut so much before they start to harm educational opportunities for their students. To maintain class sizes, keep up with rising costs, take care of school buildings, and protect high-quality instruction, many districts have turned to their community to help fill the state-imposed funding gap. Since the arrival of revenue limits, over 80% of school districts have done so by asking local voters to raise their caps through an operating referendum. Most have used the option multiple times. Our children don't have time to wait for state policymakers to fix the school funding system. By putting the needs of our students first, we are investing in their potential and the future of our whole community. Strong schools make strong communities where families want to move and stay. Learn more about school finance in Wisconsin by visiting our websites.
Thank you for enjoying a sunset while I just to go ahead and pull back up our presentation for this evening. All right. So one of the key things that you'll see here is this idea around inflation. So as we look at from about 2008 and 2009, you can see that we've had a rising rate of inflation that has not been matched by our state funding. And as it was indicated in the video, this is meant about in a school of about 1,000 students, and our student population is slightly over 900 students. That is about a loss in over $3 million in revenue. This significantly impacts the ability to provide high quality educational programming. Some of what the Glendale-River Hills School District is known for is being able to successfully prepare our students for Nicolet High School through robust programming that includes tech ed, high levels of music programming for our students, as well as high quality staff. So making sure that we are able to retain those staff and keep them in our school buildings, working with our students and being competitive in a market so that they can feel comfortable staying here and providing for their families. Upgrading our technology, and that includes some of that software work that needs to be done and infrastructure that needs to be done in terms of making sure that our students are receiving cutting edge education. And then also operational maintenance. So we run two of our buildings as educational spaces, Parkway Elementary School and Glen Hills Middle School. We have daily maintenance that needs to happen. We have custodians that we need to pay, and we need to make sure that we're also offering clean, well-run buildings for our students to be educated in. So many of you have been asking the question of what happened. So we know based on our video that I've showed you and some of the information I just shared around inflationary rates and funding not making that match, we know that state funding has not kept pace with inflation in our state. We also know that open enrollment out of the Glendale-River Hills School District, students using vouchers and funding that also travels to independent charter school has increased over a 2-year period of $399 in our district. We know that we've had to incur many unfunded mandates such as Act 20 to support student learning. We've also seen an increase in special education costs of $940,000 over a 2-year period. The number of referrals of students requiring special education since the pandemic has risen, and we are meeting that need, and that costs money in order to be able to do that, as that's federally mandated that we meet student need. Certified staff wages increased $956,000, 653 over a 2-year period. Please note, with the rising costs of healthcare and also the ability for us to remain competitive with salaries and meet the inflationary pricing that is happening in our teachers' lives, the need and necessity to raise salaries to remain competitive and retain exceptional staff and exceptional leadership has been something that was done and taken care of. However, it does come at a cost to meet those rising needs. So accounting issues that are specific to the Glendale-River Hills School District is something that we do need to discuss. Last January, we learned that there had been failed accounting practices, and we now know that that specifically was due to not reconciling expenses in a timely manner, which contributed to overspending and the depletion of $4.3 million of fund balance. So what that entailed is not having a clear financial picture to make good financial decisions from. We brought in financial experts, auditors, and our internal staff. Michelle Brown and the staff in the business office have determined that those expenditures were investments to enhance district operations and educational services. All of our outside financial experts, our auditors, as well as our internal staff, agree that there is no evidence of any fraud or embezzlement that occurred in our district. So how are we responding to this? I mentioned at the beginning of this how important it is to take care of the tax dollars money that come through to help support our schools. In the face of this challenge that arose in January, last spring, we reduced approximately $1 million through the reduction of staff and positions for the 2024-25 school year. This year, we are operating with less staff. It is felt by our staff. I think if you talk to teachers here, we recognize that that difference exists, but it was a cost-saving measure that was needed in order to address what was happening. The salaries of staff were frozen and will continue to remain so as we assess our fiscal status. We deferred technology, supply, and curriculum costs as much as we could. We did not renew some of our programming that we use in mathematics. We deferred some of the technology upgrades that we could implore, and we tried to reduce supplies. We also updated our school board fiscal policies. So the board and I worked closely together to ensure that stronger oversight through monthly spending and expenditure reports are a part of the way that we do business. Michelle Brown has done an excellent job of making sure that the second meeting of our school board in the month is always focused on our fiscal work and what those expenditures and revenues are looking like in our district. We've developed processes for purchasing to ensure multiple levels of approval and accurate accounting. So all of our staff members who are responsible for ordering items are following a distinctive purchasing procedure that has multiple levels of approval, so nothing is ordered without going through that process. Additionally, we identified opportunities for increasing revenue, investment, and ensuring that we are planning for a fiscally responsible future. Michelle Brown, upon coming here, looked for opportunities for us to increase our student count through some of the activities that we offer to our K-4 families. In addition to that, we've been able to invest some money that we have to make sure that we are making gains on money where we can. And we would really need to be working closely and have been working closely with Baird on planning for the future. The staffing in the business office was addressed to shore up past issues and ensure sound practices in the future. We now have a staffing office that includes Michelle Brown, who is our Director of Business Operations. We have Betsy Caban, who is serving as our accounting assistant, and we have a gentleman by the name of Adam Butnick, who is working as our district accountant, and Tracy Beaver, who has been with us a long time, who is working as our payroll and benefits expert. In addition to that, the board and through the financial council with Baird, Michelle, and looking at where we stand, approved a resolution to go to referendum. So what is on the ballot? The ballot is, shall the Glendale-River Hills School District, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, be authorized to exceed the revenue limit specified in section 121.91 of the Wisconsin statutes by $4,500,000 per year for 2 years for the 2024-25 school year and the 2025-26 school year for non-recurring purposes consisting of an operational expenses to maintain district programs. So you may be asking why 9 million over 2 years? And at this point, I am going to turn things over to Michelle Brown so that she may explain some of the forecasting model that we utilize with Bear that led the board and the administration to the decision to move towards referendum.
Thank you. Yes, so these tables, there's 3 tables here, and they are showing the past year that we just ended, a year before that historical, and then the current budget year of 24-25, and then 3 additional years. These tables show what the next 2 years will look like, the current year and the next 2 years, with the $6 million state trust fund loan that the district did take out, and with and without an approved 4.5 million operational referendum. So working with this, we looked at our budget and what would we need to do to be able to get by, not building fund balance or replacing anything we lost, but being able to operate without, with some type of fund balance or zero. So in looking at this, the first table shows what the district would have looked like, our budget in the next couple of years with no trust fund loan and without a approved operational referendum. The table shows that we would have had a deficit budget of over 2.5 million. And then our fund balance already negative would have been a negative 4 million. And then in the next 3 future years, we would have had the same problems, deficit budgets, needing to cut, and then, no fund balance. The district took out the $6 million state trust fund loan, and that has allowed us to increase our revenues for that, and then end the year with a surplus of 3.4 million, replacing part of that negative fund balance, and then allowing us to have 1.8 million towards the next year. But without the operational referendum and no cuts in the budget, we would still have a deficit of 4.7 million, and then ending not balanced, but ending with 0 fund balance and actually negative. And then the final table is showing the district did take out the $6 million state trust fund loan. And then also what it would look like, what our budget would look like current and future years to have a 2-year operational referendum of $4.5 million added on. So the current year with the referendum would have us ending, the budget ending with a surplus of 7.9 million. The fund balance, which had been negative at the start of the year, would end up 6.3 million. And this would help take us into next year, where the budget would have a slight deficit of 248,000, but we would be using that fund, some of that fund balance for that year. And then in the next year, we could still get through that following year with a deficit budget, but using the 6 million to cover those costs. So that scenario would allow us to basically get through the current year, 24-25, and then 2 more additional years.
Thank you, Michelle. We do have a question, which I think ties into this. The question that I received was, can we sell the Good Hope School to lessen the amount needed to cover the shortfall? So Michelle, I don't know if you want to try to take a stab at that, or you want me to jump in?
I can address it, and then if
Yeah.
you want to add on to it, it would only cover for one-time use. I mean, we would not be able to use that for future. It would just plug a hole for, 1 year or part of a year, and then we would not have that building, and we would still be in a financial situation where we would need to add more funding.
Thank you, Michelle. I think some of the pieces that I would also add to that question is thinking about the sale of the building in terms of the timeliness of that and how long it would take to consider that we have tenants in that space who are operating and serving many children in our district, wanting to make sure that we would do that in a timely way, and also considering and having the community weigh in on some of those options, which is also something we'll address towards the end of this, and making sure that any sale of a building in our district is going to be of benefit to both our community and to our school district. So what happens if this referendum fails? And this kind of gets at some of the needs that we're facing right now. Despite the spending cuts, the district will face a deficit of over 3 million in the 25-26 school year. The district will need to make approximately 3 million in cuts for that year. So those cuts will likely include the following. There would be significant staff cuts and salary freezes, which impacts our ability to maintain high quality staff. There would be cuts to allied arts and other programs such as our music programs, gifted and talented, tech ed, STEAM, and world language. We would see increased fees for our families for the school year, as well as participating in any field trips or things like that. There would be an increase in class sizes. When we reduce staff, we need to reduce our section sizes, which causes an increase in the student to teacher ratios. There would be cuts to our student support team, including counselors, psychologists, and social worker, which would lead to fewer mental health and social emotional learning supports for our students. Reduced access to technology and curriculum resources, and more deferred maintenance in our buildings that serve our students educationally. So at Parkway and Glen Hills. So the inability to fix or respond to maintenance that maybe needs to happen to keep our buildings in good working order. So if approved, this referendum would end up costing our taxpayers about $19.33 a year, or excuse me, a month, per 200K value on the house. For a 400K house, you're looking at about $38 a month. That is the investment that this 4.5 million over 2 years would be asking of our taxpayers. And it's important to note that if the referendum succeeds, the district will be looking at maintaining its current level of service. We will not be looking at adding programming. We'll be looking at maintaining what we currently have with the million in cuts that we made last spring. So that would help support student to teacher ratios. This is especially important at Parkway Elementary and Glen Hills. Glen Hills ratios tend to be a little higher right now, so there's not as much flexibility. So this would likely impact Parkway Elementary more. We want to maintain our robust programming in music. So being able to offer band, choir, and orchestra, as well as a general music program to our students at the middle school level. Maintaining our science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics course, and the work that's being done in our outdoor classroom. Maintaining our tech ed program at the middle school. Maintaining world languages, and also talent development and the gifted and talented program. We'd also be looking at maintaining the student support team so that we can continue to provide strong mental health and social emotional learning supports to students. After the pandemic, we added additional staff in this area, and it's made a huge difference in terms of being able to meet the needs of students within our school buildings. Our reading and math interventionists who support student and teacher success. So we have reading and math interventionists. They work closely with our students who are lagging or falling behind in some of their academic areas of reading and math. They provide interventions to support those students in making gains. They also work closely with our teachers to coach them on effective instructional practices. It would allow us to maintain salaries that are going to help support and retain high-quality staff in our district. And it's going to be very important that we retain some of our best staff, especially in this time, to make sure that we can continue to grow and move our students forward and propel them academically. It would also mean that we could address just those necessary maintenance pieces on our school buildings. So not enhancing them, or making them infinitely better. We would just be maintaining those things on our buildings and grounds that need to be fixed and repaired, and those things that come up that need to be tended to. It would also allow us to maintain technology and curriculum materials for instruction. We are a one-to-one school in terms of technology, and when we're looking at those pieces, it may be something that we would have to tailor back. So some of the pieces that are coming up here, and really taking a look at sort of where we're going and why we would want to be able to do this and why we're making a 2-year ask. So I'm seeing a question that's coming in. And there are things that people are asking in terms of what are the solutions of considering besides in addition to the referendum. So in addition to the referendum, there is a level of advocacy that public school educators are making, opportunities to talk to state officials to fix the funding formula. There really is a limited amount of revenue that comes in, so addressing those revenue limits is going to be a way to do that. There may be some fundraising opportunities. However, in order to operate the school district, we would really need to reduce costs in addition to a referendum. The other question that's being asked is how would this funding benefit the district beyond the next 2 years? Or will we find ourselves in a similar position in the near future? This is a good question to be asking and is timely in terms of the presentation that we're looking at. In order to move our district forward, we likely will need to seek referendum in the future until the revenue limits in the state of Wisconsin are shifted and the funding formula shifts in the state of Wisconsin. So the drivers in terms of how we get there is really making sure that in the next 2 years, and part of the reason why we went to a conservative 2-year ask is because of what occurred in January and wanting to steady the ship and make sure that we are involving the community in the future of our schools and really seeking to address the questions that are being asked here of how the funding would benefit the district beyond. So really starting to think about that, engage the community, and have an opportunity to do that. One of the key areas that we're looking at is executing our strategic plan, which is a 5-year strategic plan from 2024, so the start of this school year, to 2029. Last school year, during the spring and through the fall, we had community members, board members, staff members that would have an opportunity to meet to work on our strategic plan with a consultant. As part of that work, what came out of that is a mission of empowering growth, connection, and success for all members of a learning community. Our vision was a community that pursues equity where each person belongs and thrives. So going forward, we really want to make sure that we are adhering to this strategic plan. The district pillars of this plan are whole child growth and success, empowered community, exceptional staff, and exceptional leadership, as well as equitable stewardship. So the work that we're doing in whole child growth and success is really truly meaning that we're establishing differentiated and culturally responsive teaching and curriculum practices that challenge all students, close opportunity gaps, and support academic and emotional and social readiness for high school and beyond. We want to empower the community by building connections and partnerships between our schools and the community to ensure equitable access, representation, voice, and understanding. In exceptional leadership, we're working to create an inclusive work environment that attracts, retains, and celebrates diverse staff, promotes growth in teaching, culturally responsive practices, and fosters a high level of well-being and resilience and balance in staff. Equitable stewardship, we're seeking to improve our district facilities with a focus on student, staff, community needs, and environmental sustainability, and being sure that we are developing an annual budget that is sustainable and adaptable for evolving needs. We understand that engaging in a strategic plan requires a level of accountability, and we want to show that ongoing growth to our community. We have been working on developing a scorecard that would be available for our community to see to measure our progress. We would be looking at a student life at school score that would be comprised of various survey questions for our students. We would be looking at early literacy achievement metrics that would be reported over this 5-year span. Math and literacy achievement scores, again, that would be reported over this 5-year span. Gap closure reporting, so looking at how we're closing both opportunity and achievement gaps for our students. For empowered community, we would be seeking information from our community and family through engagement surveys, and looking at that overall level of satisfaction and responding to it. Identification of communication of partnerships, an exceptional staff and exceptional leadership. We would be looking at our staff retention rate and being able to maintain our teachers within our school district. Our staff engagement score obtained through survey work, as well as focusing on equitable stewardship by increasing our fund balance percentage and making sure that we're in a good place financially, that we're getting stakeholder input on a balanced budget, and that we are looking at a 10-year capital and maintenance plan with our community. The need for us to have a scorecard and metrics and a vision going forward is to help close what has been sort of a lack of information that's been transformed and a lack of accountability of what is happening within our schools and the community. These 2 years and shoring up some of those financial pieces would allow us to continue to work towards this and use those metrics over the next couple of years to look for where our growth is, maybe where we're not seeing growth, so that we can become better and engage in a process of continuous improvement that is both visible to the community and accessible to the community. So part of planning for our future is really taking a look and engaging more community actors in our educational programming, having a good feeling from families about what it means and what they're seeking for their children so that we can continue to attract and retain our students and reduce our costs of open enrollment out. That we can also look at retaining our staff and what are those things and expectations that we hold as a community in terms of the staff that we have in our district. Making sure that our technology continues to be up to date and the way that technology is used and accessed within our schools is both equitable and meets the needs of our community. And then a big piece of this too is looking at operational maintenance. When we think about our buildings, we have Parkway Elementary School, Glen Hills Middle School, and we have the Good Hope Building. And as we begin to think about planning for the future, taking a look at those spaces, the repairs that need to be made, and the offerings of education is something that the community should be a part of. Unfortunately, due to the way that we're walking into this referendum, that planning was not done in advance. So most districts would have engaged their community in thinking about the future fiscally, so that a clear pathway forward would be evident. We are in a space right now where we need to study the ship for 2 years while we lean into that engagement with the community. So those are some of the key pieces around the referendum that I think it's important for our community to understand. The $4.5 million per year ask gets us at a place where we are just coming out even and are shoring ourselves up financially over the next 3 years to make strong decisions and engage with the community about how the future of education in the Glendale-River Hills School District should look. I want to make sure that there's an opportunity for people to answer any questions. I would also encourage all of you to make sure that you vote And you can reach out to myvotewisconsin.gov for any information on registration if you should need that. And then I also want to thank you for coming tonight, and I will dip in and start answering some additional questions that are coming in right now. My contact information is up here. If there are questions that you think about afterwards, you are welcome to reach out to me via email, via phone. I'm happy to be in contact with you to provide any information that you need in order to make an informed decision on November 5th. So I am going to pause that, and I am going to dip into a couple of the questions that I saw coming through. So one of the questions that was asked here is, could the psychologist and counseling staff be outsourced instead of salaried staff positions? I guess one of the things that it is possible, and there are districts that resource that out, it's not always necessarily more cost effective, because oftentimes when we collaborate with the various CISA organizations that would provide those services to us, they're not necessarily, so a school psychologist would be an option. I do want to also note, however, excuse me, that when we receive referrals for special education, our school psychologists take on those referrals. We have an incredibly high rate of referrals that come in, and we need to address the referrals that come in from our district and also the referrals that come in from any private schools that reside within our district as well. One of the things that I have been engaging with the other superintendents in our partner districts is also whether or not we need to hire additional psychologists at this point to help address that growing need that we're receiving from private schools, which we are also expecting will increase with the addition of St. Augustine Prep in our region, in our area of Glendale. So it is a possibility to outsource that, not always the most cost effective. Michelle, I know if you want to chime in on this, would be one to want to take a look at where we can find those kind of efficiencies when we're looking to staff.
Yeah, that is one thing. We plan to, over the next year, 2 years, look at where we can gain efficiencies. If, as Ms. Young had said, depending on our caseloads, if we had a lower caseload in certain areas, lower students in some areas, we could look at sharing resources with other districts, contracting out those things. But we will be looking at all those things.
Thank you, Michelle. The other question that came through is a very important one, and one that sits close to something that we need to be thinking about as a community. The question is, we have a lower than average community enrollment rate. What can be done to retain residents to reduce even more losses to open enrollment? So our open enrollment out is something that does impact us significantly financially. And one of the ways that we I think that we need to seek to do that is by engaging the community in what it is they would like to see in our schools, and making sure that we are developing and funding the schools that we want to see in our community, and making sure that those resources are in place. Another key piece of this is also thinking about how our educational programming is aligning with our other partner districts that feed into Nicolet. Those residents of our community oftentimes have students who go to high school there, and they want them to be well prepared. So when we look at the offerings and access that our neighboring districts have, we need to also think about the difference that occurs in terms of how we fund our schools and what our schools look like and how we're servicing students. And I think it is really important to lay those things out on the table, right? The good, bad, and the ugly, and be able to start to look at them and say, what is the path forward for the future? And as residents, do we want to see? What are those things that historically we have held dear and want to maintain? And what are those things that need desperate changing? And how can we work towards that, not only with our school funding, but also with just the input of the community? Another key piece that I see in this is having that accountability through our scorecard with the community to demonstrate what we're doing within our buildings. I think there's been a large tenor of broken trust within our community, with our district, that relies heavily on communication. It relies heavily on that level of engagement, which is something that I know the board is committed to. It's something that I would be committed to, because we want to make sure that we have strong schools in our community, and we want to be a first choice for families. And we live in an area where there are options, and those options can be exercised by our residents. Part of my communication and talking points with our staff is it's not okay for us to just be good. We need to be excellent in our work, and we need to build those relationships with our families and welcome people into our spaces, listen to their feedback, and really work to adjust in that area. So great question, with a really long-winded answer. That's not necessarily, I don't have a quick fix for that. I think that's the deeper work that needs to be done within our community and within our district. At this time, are there any additional, so a person is asking whether or not alumni can be hit up for donations to the school district like colleges do. We certainly can tap our alumni who are willing to give to our district. I think there's real power in that when we look at, especially when I look at the cost of our music program. And I don't want to put Michelle on the spot, but our music programming is very, I think, a very robust program. But we also rent our own instruments, so we're maintaining instruments. So being able to pull in some people who can help fund and do fundraising for our district to help support some of those extra programs that we offer, I think are really important. Of course, we can't rely on donations alone to just produce free and public education to students, because we do need to make sure that we have a steady funding stream that is related to those pieces. But definitely hitting up alumni, doing an alumni campaign is something that I know a few of our alumni who are staff at Glen Hills in particular are reaching out to some of their people, not necessarily for donations, but just to let them know about the good things that we're doing in this community. So I think that's a great option, and something I would love to see explored. Would need the help and support of the foundation in order to be able to do that as well. There's another question that came in and says, can you please explain in detail why you won't be selling the Good Hope property? Seems like a waste not to take advantage of the property. We are right now that we're exploring what our options are with Good Hope. It is it is imperative, and I will say this to make sure that whatever decision we make around Good Hope is one that's good for the community of Glendale. It's not a fast decision or a rush to sell. We want to make sure that we are adequately vetting whatever decision we make with that. So it's not a quick sale. And it also is not something that would solve our financial problems. It would give us a kind of a stopgap, a little bit of a, window of reducing some costs. But when we think about the value or the valuation of that property, which based on some initial reporting is about 2.5 million, when we think about our need, that is not going to get us very far. And once that land is gone, and once that building is gone, it is then removed from our portfolio, and we move any other opportunities that we have with that property. Michelle, do you want to weigh in on that a little bit more for the other question?
For the sale of Good Hope,
Yes.
I really don't have anything to add right now.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. Are there any more questions this evening that people might have? So we have another question here. Would a grants manager be able to support additional programs or grants that schools are eligible for but may not know about, at least to support the programs we could lose? Michelle, do you want to tap into that?
Yes, The school district and school districts in Wisconsin have a lot of resources as far as grants. Knowing which grants are available through the DPI and through the federal government. Also, we could look at working with our CISA to see if there's additional grants out there. Oftentimes, there's grants for school safety, those types of resources, and then different curriculum companies would give grants for purchasing curriculum. As far as grants to operate, outside of safety, that would be something that we will definitely be looking into, what is available for us.
I'll just add to that too, that I know that as administrators, so your director of teaching and learning, myself, Kelly Weiss-Galacki, Director of Pupil Services and Student Services, and Michelle Brown. If we receive information about grants, we make sure that we pass them along. We do have several teachers who write smaller grants. We would love any volunteer support if we see if somebody feels like that's a skill set that they would be willing to help support our school district with too, as we come across grants. If we have in the hopper somebody who may have that time available, we would certainly appreciate that. All right, I am not seeing any other questions. I'm going to give it a little bit of wait time because I want to make sure that as people are thinking of things that they have an opportunity to ask. All right, I am not seeing any additional questions come in. I do want to also extend and say that if there are questions that you come up with after this time, please let me know. I believe I've recorded this and we should be in a place where we'll be posting it. So if there's anything that you want to review or you want to suggest it to anyone who has the opportunity, who wasn't able to come tonight, who would like to view it, it will be available for view. I'll get that posted onto Facebook. I also want to encourage that if you have additional questions that are coming up, we have another informational session. That one will be in person. And it'll be more of a live Q&A opportunity so we can interact as humans and not over a screen, which I always enjoy. And so that will be taking place on October 10th in the Glen Hills Library. It starts at 7 and goes until 8 p.m. Additionally, we are going to be having a student showcase and community resource fair on October 15th, which is a Tuesday evening from 5:30 to 7:30. We have about 20 vendors from the area that are be coming in, and all of them offer specific resources to both families and young people. So we want to make sure that we are bringing everyone through our doors, seeing those amazing things our students and teachers are doing, and also that you have an opportunity to see what richness exists within our whole community to help support your students. So we look forward to those events. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions, and thank you all for being here tonight. It is greatly appreciated.